Lots to talk about today. So, who's interested in knowing all things with the new buyer broker agreement? So, curiously, and I apologize, excuse me, in advance for my voice. I'm getting over a cold. um, has anyone read the new draft yet? Okay, sort of. Okay. Have you attended any classes on it yet or seen the CAR video? Awesome. Love that. So I want this to be very open forum. I don't want it just to be me going through a form, which can be boring, and yet it's incredibly important. So I am going to, hi, Alex. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go through the sections of it. Normally, when we have these, we're turning our workshops into contracts and conversations with a coach, and we want them to be really centered around how we use all of our new forms, how we have conversations with our clients for successful transactions moving forward. And that's what the bulk of these will be for the foreseeable future, to make sure we're bringing you the best value possible. However, the first few of these, we're going to go a little more detail into each of the forms because we have to know them inside and out. Remember, you shouldn't be signing or having your client sign a form you haven't personally read. So one of the things that you're going to need to do is read every one of our new forms. And what you'll notice, the forms that are in draft form, everything in red is brand new, was never on that form before, or it's a completely new form. So that's how you can find the changes, okay? So we're going to start with going through the BRBC today. I also have several other forms that could be used potentially in conjunction with them pulled up that time allowing, we'll go back and forth to that. So before we get started, do you have any specific questions around the BRBC? Anything specific you want to walk away with today in regard to that? Excuse me. Nope, we're just gonna roll. Okay, we can do that. Please, 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 it's very important. If you have a question or don't understand something in the form, you gotta ask, okay? Don't hold back. As soon as we finish a section and I've explained it, read it or explained it, then ask the question, okay? Feel free to unmute and just chime right in. We want this to be interactive. Okay, that's how it's not as boring to go over a form. Okay, so let me go ahead and start by sharing my screen. Okay, so one major change that they made on this form, you've probably noticed, is it now has a grid. So a couple of years ago, the RPA changed to a grid format, and it had been our only form with that. Now the RPA, the listing agreement, and the buyer broker agreement is in grid form. So those three forms that we mainly use are all basically work together and look the same, which I think is really nice. Makes it easy for us. So essentially, everything in the grid section of the form, and you'll notice on this one, it is just the first page. Everything on the grid section of any of those three forms is the key pieces. Okay, that's the key parts of the agreement. The rest of it kind of spells it out. Okay, so as with any of our forms, always put the date prepared at the top. Okay, now this is a draft, so it isn't going to let me fill anything in. Okay, so can you see my cursor where it is when I move it? Okay, perfect. So it's always important that you put the date prepared. Now, here's a big change that you need to be aware of. Our prior BRBC, which is what this form is, was exclusive or had the option of being non-exclusive, exclusive, and there was one other option. This one, as written, is non-exclusive. Okay, unless exclusive is checked and initialed. And so we'll get there. And right here, you should always mark exclusive. Okay, there may be a time randomly where you won't for a specific scenario, but in general, you're always going to want to mark exclusive. Okay, when in doubt, reach out to us. So notice it clarifies this is non-exclusive right unless checked in 2A and initialed in paragraph 15. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down to paragraph 15 so you can see what it's referring to. Exclusive representation. So if that box is checked, not only does the box have to be checked, but the buyer has to initial paragraph 15 because it's spelling it out exactly what that means. Any questions? Okay. Back to the top. So, representation period. This is also new. Our prior BRBC, you could have it for any time period that you wished. This is limited to 3 months. Okay. So it starts on, so if it's today is July 22nd, it ends on October 22nd. Okay, it is 3 months. It's not 90 days, it's actually months. So it has to start and end on the same date 3 months later. You can make it for less, but you cannot exceed 3 months. Now, let's say 3 months passes or is almost ready to pass, right? Then you can extend it with an extension of time addendum. Okay, so don't panic if you haven't found a home yet. Just make sure you set that expectation and make sure you're calendaring a good week before this expires so you can get that extension signed. Okay, we've already discussed the exclusive. So property to be acquired, broker, including any associate licensee working through broker on behalf of buyer, provides services for the types of properties and in the locations specified below. Now, in the past, we have said you don't have to be too detailed. You don't want to put yourself in a box. We really didn't. We use this more as a loyalty agreement. And now that is changing. You have to be more detailed. Okay. So it's assumed the way it's written that this is for a single family residence, which would include a condo, a mobile home, manufactured home, unless you check the box that you're excluding single family homes. Okay. In addition, you can add multifamily. That means duplex, triplex, fourplex, 5 or more units, industrial, vacant land, commercial, tenancy in common, or anything else that you write in here. Okay, so when you're having your buyer consultations, it's going to be really important that you understand what it is they're looking for. Because if you think they want a single family home with an ADU or a mother-in-law quarters, but they come across the perfect duplex, and then they decide to purchase a duplex, you want to make sure that the multifamily is checked. So you have to be listening and paying attention to what they need. Make sense? Then counties and cities. If you are representing them for a number of different counties or cities, make sure that you put them in here. So some of you live where you work in multiple counties because they're nearby. I know that's for, like San Diego, Orange County, depending on where you're at, right? Orange County, Riverside County are next to each other. Tulare County, Kings County, right next to each other. So make sure that you are writing in the counties that you are willing and able to represent them in. Okay. Now, let's just say you're in San Diego County, way down south, and then there's another county at what is Stanislaus, one of the northern counties. I got to go back to my grade school history lessons. One of the northernmost counties, right? You're not likely going to represent them there. So you're not going to add that. However, you could refer them if they're also looking in that area. They could have another buyer broker agreement with someone in a different area that you're not representing them in. So they could be a part of multiple buyer broker agreements at the same time. Does everyone get that? Understand that? Any questions? Okay. If they have additional preferences, it is possible that you can use this form. This is called it's new, well, I don't know if it's new, but we've never really used it before. BIPP, Buyer Identification of Preferences and Priorities. You do not have to use this form, by the way. This is just something that can help you check off things they want. A good buyer consultation, you should be taking notes on that, okay? But it is another form to help you should you choose to use it. All right, notice here they have in bold, broker compensation. The amount or rate of real estate compensation is not fixed by law. They are set by each broker individually and may be negotiable between buyer and broker. See attached broker compensation advisory. Now notice on this, the next page, this is automatically checked. Even though this is draft form, when something's automatically checked, it will be attached. So the broker compensation acknowledgement or broker compensation advisory will be attached at the bottom of this when it becomes live. They should go live on Wednesday unless something changes between now and then. This basically explains the compensation. This is for both seller and buyer. So it explains listing agreement compensation, broker agreement compensation, and how that works, saying that they are fully negotiable. Okay, so you have to be really careful. In the past, we've used phrases like, well, the standard commission is, or the average. We cannot say things like that. They have to be aware that it is fully negotiable. That's why it is written in so many places on these forms now. That's part of this settlement lawsuit that happened. They've always been negotiable, okay? And in California, our forms have always made that clear. So they're going above and beyond now to make it even clearer. But here's what you need to do. In the past, many agents have just assumed that, okay, well, they know commissions are negotiable and this is my fee, and we just kind of gloss over it. And if they don't say anything, great, right? You need to discuss what amount you're putting on here, okay? You can't just give them the form and sign it, say sign it. You have to discuss this with them, okay? And you can say something to the effect of, well, all commissions are fully negotiable, as they always have been, by the way. My fee is, right? Not my standard fee, not whatever. My fee is. So you determine what your fee is. Now, personally, if I'm representing the buyer, my fee is going to be 3%. That's my personal fee because I give full service and I give the value to be able to charge that fee. So that is mine. Okay. You determine yours and make sure you're getting paid for your value. Not only that, though, that you're providing the value that you are promising. We'll have lots of conversations, coaching classes around all of that as we move forward as well, as we always have, but even more so. Okay. You can check the box here and put a flat fee. I recommend this one. It's my personal recommendation. Okay. You can put, so you could say, my fee is X% and blank, if any. This could be, an example would be maybe you pass on your transaction fee or your transaction coordinator fee. Let me caution all of you about that. Okay. My personal opinion, as having been doing this for many years, is those fees are a part of our business, right? That's part of our cost of doing business. While you can pass that on, I don't recommend it because we're getting used to new things. But with the buyers paying the commission as it is, although there's ways for them not to, and we'll get into that. You don't want to get to where you're nickel and diming your clients. Okay. There are certain fees we pay, right? And that's why my fee is the percent that I charge, because I'm not going to charge them any of this extra stuff, right? I can let them know part of why my fee is this is because I'm a full-time agent or a full service agent, and because I have fees on my end I have to pay. And, we can have other discussions on that at a later time, or if there's time later today. Don't get into nickel and diming. And here's a really big caution with this. If you, oops, it doesn't highlight just the section. If you choose to do this with one person, you must do it with everyone. You can't pick and choose who you're going to do it with. And that is because of fair housing laws. Okay. So everyone has to be treated fairly. So you can't decide, oh, I can charge my transaction coordinator fee. I didn't know that. I'm going to start doing that. And you've never done it before. Does that make sense? Does everybody understand that? Okay. If broker receives compensation from sellers or others for broker's representation of the buyer, the amount shall be credited against buyer's obligation to pay the broker. So on a different session, we will discuss the RPA, where there will be a box that you can check that you're actually asking the seller to pay this fee, and then you would provide this form with your offer. So just because the buyer is agreeing to pay your fee, we have ways around the buyer not necessarily having to pay the fee. Okay. It's really just becoming another negotiation point, like everything always has been. We've in the past commonly asked for sellers to pay buyers' closing costs, sellers to pay for the buyer's home warranty, sellers to pay for half the escrow fees. That's pretty typical in all of our areas. Whatever those things are, the buyer's compensation can become a new negotiation point. Okay. And my understanding is the good news about that is, while all loan programs have a certain amount that we can't exceed asking for in closing costs, the buyer compensation is not bundled in with that. So you can still ask for closing costs and buyer compensation on top of that. Just be careful. We have to set expectations with our buyers. If we're going to be asking for that, that means the seller is going to be expecting a higher offer than what their price is, than what their home is listed at, in order for them to look at compensating, just like we do with closing costs and have always done. Does that make sense? Okay. So then we have continued right to payment for broker-involved properties. The continued period shall be X calendar days after the representation period. So here is where you'd want to put in 30, 60, 90, meaning if this agreement expires, the buyer didn't sign a new one, and they went and purchased a property that you showed them, they would be obligated to pay you for this amount of days if it happened within that time period after your agreement expired. Okay. Cancellation of rights, if it's non-exclusive, it can be effective immediately, or you can put in a number of days. If it's exclusive, the cancellation is effective 30 days after receipt of cancellation. Okay, so they can't just say, hey, I'm done with you. And you can't just say, hey, I'm done with them. Okay. Another additional thing here, buyer financial personal information. So just like when we do a purchase agreement, we need to have buyer's proof of funds, be it proof of cash funds, a pre-approval letter from a lender. The buyer now has to give us proof of funds as representing them that they will be able to pay us at the end of escrow. That's what this is stating. So the buyer has 5 days, or if you put in a different amount, to give you proof of their funds to be able to close the transaction, meaning their down payment, their closing costs, and your commission that they have agreed to pay you. Okay. If buyer does not have sufficient funds, this box can be checked. If buyer intends to purchase with the following loan product, which does not allow the buyer to pay, this box can be checked. Hopefully that won't be an issue in the lending world, and we just don't know that for sure, so that's why that's here. So if this is the case, then if this box is checked, and you're given proof of whatever funds that they have for the closing of their transaction, and that is submitted to the seller, that strengthens your asking for that, so long as your offer is strong enough to compensate. Make sense? Okay. So the rest of this form, I'm not going to go through it line by line because you guys can all read, right? So what I do want you to do though, this week is I want you to read this entire form. I also want you to read the BCA form that will be attached to it, because this is explaining the compensation advisory. Okay. Essentially, it boils down to all commissions are negotiable. That's what it boils down to. It's a lot of verbiage there. What this does is this explains everything that is in the grid, essentially. That buyer will pay through escrow, agency relationships. You may be representing multiple buyers. What you should be doing. There are a couple things I do want to point out here, because this has come up recently with a few people, actually. Not so much this part, but the next part. So notice that these are the things that you should be doing with your buyer, okay? So you're finding the property, you're writing the offer, you're negotiating it, then you're ordering reports, inspections, and scheduling these things as needed, and attending them with your buyer, okay? That is now on here. If they need help finding these professionals, we're going to do that for them. If they need help finding a lender, we're going to help them with that. All of your market centers have preferred lenders. That's who you should be referring them to if they don't know anyone yet. And if you've not met your market center's preferred lenders, put that as one of your action items for this week, because you really need to have good relationships with your lenders. Okay. Right here, this is so important, guys. Oopsie. Okay, it doesn't want to do it. Good faith. You should not be writing multiple offers for a buyer just because they're afraid they might not get something accepted. Their obligation is to move forward in good faith. That means buyer agrees to timely view and consider property selected by you. Negotiate in good faith to acquire a property where they further agree to act in good faith toward the completion of any contract entered into for a property. So what's worse than their offer not being accepted? More than one offer being accepted. They now have not acted in good faith. That means you also didn't act in good faith, and you're not being a fiduciary. Okay? So please do not write multiple offers for the same client unless they fully intend to purchase all of the properties you wrote an offer for. Okay? Reasonable care. I already went through this box. Now, here's one other thing I'll point out is, notice again, we've got the compensation up in the grid, and right before they sign, here it is again. Confirmation of compensation. Buyer confirms that the compensation specified in 2E1 for broker services is, and then you put your fee here, okay? And then sign it like always before. Okay, now this, because it's a draft, this ends here, but when it goes live, these 3 pages will be attached to it, and likely our agency agreements and such as current. Okay, before I unshare my screen, is there any piece of this that you want to see again or have a question about? Okay. You guys are quiet today. Hopefully you're taking it all in. So let's chat about this a little bit. How are you feeling about our new buyer BRBC?
What are you generally putting in for the time for continued right to payment?
I would say 30 or 60 days is probably sufficient. Um, it's just if they're that's to avoid them trying to cancel the agreement with you and go into something you've already worked hard for them with someone else. So as long as it's a reasonable time, 30 days is probably sufficient, no more than 60, but that's a personal preference.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
I don't know if like you would know the answer to that right now or if it's gonna change, but say that you sorry. Sorry, give me 1 second. So say that you have this signed and then the 3 months pass and then it expires or whatever, they don't want to extend it, but then they get into escrow like a week later, a couple weeks later with the house you've already showed them. Are you still entitled to the compensation?
If you put that 30 or 60 days or whatever number of days in that one spot that I showed you,
Okay.
and if you do that, when the agreement expires, you'll need to provide a list of the properties that you have shown them.
Okay.
Okay. And I believe there's a form for that. So,
Okay.
yeah, but you would need to provide them with a list.
And then I have one more question. When you said that a buyer could have more than one BRBC with another agent, is that only like in like you how you mentioned in a different area? Like I cover San Diego, so say it's like I have a referral for LA. Like, then that's the case. It can't be two in San Diego.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And I'm thank you for asking that so I can clarify something with all of you. So just like if you're talking to a potential seller, but you find out in the conversation that their property is already listed with an agent, that conversation has to stop immediately, like literally immediately. And the only thing that you can say is, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I did not realize your home was listed with an agent. I apologize, but I can no longer talk to you about anything in regard to selling your home while you're under contract with that agent." The same thing is going to apply now with buyer's rep agreement. It would be unethical and I would imagine as illegal as a listing agreement to do the same. So if you find out, and that's why your buyer consultations, you have to know the questions that you're asking, right? Are you working with an agent? Have you signed a buyer representation agreement with that agent? And if they have, you don't pursue it any longer. And you basically say the same thing. You cannot help them while they're currently under contract with another agent. If anything changes in the future, feel free to reach out to me. But, and here's the key, guys, because most of us were so helpful and we want to help, a lot of times when you say that to a seller or a buyer, they're going to say, "Oh, but I just have a quick question. Oh, but," right? Because they're with you. You can't answer those questions, and you just have to say, "I'm so sorry, but I'm not legally allowed to answer that question now that I know you're under contract with another agent."
So I have a question. I guess she's kind of a buyer. She's a family member. So she hasn't signed any contracts with any agents, but she's kind of like, she doesn't want to sign a contract until she finds a house. So whoever kind of like finds her a house first kind of thing. I'm kind of like uncomfortable because she's working with another agent, but it's like, they haven't signed a contract, but it's like, I don't like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what to tell her or how to like explain it to her, anything.
Well, come August 17th, that's going to be a super simple explanation.
Yeah. Yeah, I explained
Okay.
it to her. I explained that to her, that no one's gonna really, show her a house or anything without a contract.
Yeah.
So she's trying to rush and have everyone kind of find her something before then. But
So that's a personal choice if you want to do that. But personally, if I have somebody who I know I'm going to do all this work for and they may go with somebody else, I'm not going to work with that person because I could be spinning my wheels for nothing. And buyers are a lot of work, and buyers don't understand how much work they are because they don't know all the things we do behind the scenes, all the things that we protect them from, right? And so if they're gonna be that iffy, wishy-washy, even family, and probably even more so if it's family, not to be rude about anybody's family, right? But we all know how that can be. I would just say, listen, I love you and I really want to help you, but unless you're willing to commit to me, I have other people that I have to help, and I can't be looking for something for you if I don't know you're going to use me. That wouldn't be fair of me. That wouldn't be fair. Um, um, shoot, it just went out of my head that fast. But come August 17th, right? No licensed agent will be allowed to show a house virtually, in person, or any other way you can think of without a buyer representation agreement signed. Now, that said, there is something that they did I pull up the form? No, I didn't pull up the form. There is another form that's a single property representation, and I think it's either one, you can have up to 3 properties on there or something. So like if you go out and show 3 homes to a buyer, you can have them sign that agreement. It's not tying you to them for a certain amount of time, but it is tying you to them for those properties for which you showed them. Okay, so we can go over that form as well. And then open houses, which we'll have a whole other discussion on this. Open houses are going to have a form for sign in, and some of you have been a little nervous, I know, in talking with you guys about getting people to sign into your open houses. Guess what? That fear is going to have to go away real quick because it's going to be required. And there's a form for that from CAR. So, and it's basically a visitor form. And then they can check on there whether or not they have an agent or not. So that form might be helpful to those that may be a little nervous about asking for people to sign in. And you can just say, with the new laws that just went into effect August 17th, we are now required to have you sign this. And then just say, if you already have a buyer representation agreement signed with another agent, go ahead and check that box. So hopefully, the way I look at a lot of this, I think the standards of practice that we are being required of should have always been required. It should never have not been required, right? So I look at this as positive, and I look at all of these changes as bringing more professionalism and helping all of us really be more professional and really know what our value is and how to articulate our value, instead of just trying to gloss over things and hope everything goes well, which unfortunately a lot of new agents do. Not saying that's any of you, but in general, in the business in general, that happens a lot. And so this is going to help everyone become more professional. And so I think that's a very positive thing. And we're going to be bringing you, we'll be doing this workshop. We will have maybe a couple of us coaches in at a given time over the next few weeks, so that we can actually role play some things for you. Not making you role play with us, but the coaches will role play together a good buyer consultation. What should that look like, right? Would that be beneficial to you guys? to see that in action?
Yes, I think that's pretty awesome.
Awesome. We're also going to be making videos of that and putting them in the toolkit. So we're having to change everything, as I have mentioned a couple times already. Be patient with us. We're not starting all our new contract videos and sample forms until Wednesday when they are officially released, because we want to make sure there's no last minute changes so we don't have to redo them again. And we actually don't have availability to make them fillable for practice to give you samples until they're officially released. But we will get that done as quickly as possible. And in the meantime, just reach out to us for help. We're here to help you. Okay. We're not going to leave you hanging. So what other questions do you have in regard to what we've been talking about? Or at this point, we can open it up to any question that you may have. Nothing? You guys are good? So do you want 20 minutes back in your day? So I'm happy to do that, but I would love for you to use those 20 minutes to go to read those forms. Okay. Everybody promise to read those forms this week?
Yes, we definitely will.
All right. Awesome. Now, Alex, did you do that on purpose or did your thing auto do your thumb up?
You know, it's funny, I just noticed that as well, and I was, yeah, actually Matthew just did the same thing. I have no idea. Maybe the camera picked it up.
Some of the tablets have that feature on it now. It's kind of interesting. All right. Well, at least I know people whose cameras aren't on are paying attention. Cameras on when possible, but thank you all for being here. I'm going to give you those 20 minutes back because I want you to go read those forms in their entirety. Okay? Have a great day,
Thank you,
everyone.
Jodi. Yes,
Thank you so
thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. See you soon.